I am Chrissy from Doing Life with Intention podcast, and I'm here with Dr. Anderson. I am so glad that you're here with me today. I wanted to ask you a question. So, there is a war happening, the war in Israel, and I wondered what your thoughts were on that.
I think that we have a God who hates to see innocent people killed. And it is so unfortunate that on October 7th, Hamas, a terrorist organization, literally killed thousands of people, including women, children, babies, so on and so forth. That hate and that anger caused Israel and the rest of the world to gasp to see such torture. And we have reports now of people who are dying based on torture, based on their Hebrew and Israeli and Jewish blood and background. And so, as a result of that, unfortunately, over 2,300, if not more, were killed. My son is a DJ at music festivals. This was a music festival. So, imagine people dancing and having a good time at a music festival, and then people come in, terrorists come in and start shooting, killing, kidnapping innocent everyday people, and now over 200 people are hostages that are being held against their will, some tortured and being used as human bargaining chips in order to try to get what they want. So that is horrific. The question might be, well, why in the world would they have done that? And we can have those questions and talk about that as well. But first, we have to say October 7th was a dark and evil and wicked day that the Palestinians themselves had no choice about. They didn't have a democratic vote to say, we're going to attack Israel. There was a terrorist group that live among the Palestinians who have been planning this for 2 years. And as a result, all of that death happened. I know God doesn't like that. Now you have the Israel Defense Force that are saying, we're going to take them out. We're going to fight them back. We can't just sit by and let the death of thousands of innocent civilians who are Jewish be slaughtered. So we have to do something about it. If we don't do something about it, they're going to come and do more. So at what point do you say, we got to put down this enemy that's coming against our children, right? And this is how you would feel if it was your child and someone came in and they slaughtered your child just because your child was black, or just because your child was Asian, or just because your child was Hispanic, or just because your child was Jewish or Arab, and you had nothing to do with it. You were just trying to breastfeed. You know what I mean? And so your husband would probably be like, you know what? We got to go get them. Now, when you have the authorities that could go get them, that's one thing. Well, guess what? Who are the authorities? The authorities are the military in Israel who are saying, we have to go kill Hamas. Here's the problem. Hamas is hiding amongst the citizenry of the Palestinians. And so, therefore, the civilians become a human shield and the hostages become a bargaining chip, which is all a part of their plan. Now, why are so many people on the Palestinian side upset? Well, that's because Israel's going in and going after Hamas, and now you've got innocent Palestinians. And I've been there. You know, I've been to Israel, I've gone through a checkpoint, I've been on the Palestinian side, and you've got a lot of Palestinian Christians, you have a lot of Palestinian folk who are just trying to live their lives, and it's been very, very harsh, where they're dealing with no electricity or no water, and there's all kind of enmity between the Palestinians who are poor and who are hurting, and then those in Israel who aren't. And so I think because of the imbalance of what has taken place in their history, with boundary lines that have been set, with the fact that they're living behind walls, with the fact that they're being occupied by Israel, all of that has created within the Arab community and the Palestinian community a hate, an anger, a hurt, a pain. And who's doing it? It would be those in Israel. And so as a result, that's why there's so much animosity. And then you have Hamas, which is the terrorist group that seems like they're the fighting force for the Palestinians. So this is very confusing. It's very complicated, and it's very, very sad. What does God feel about it? He's hurt. He's angry. He's upset. And he will bring peace to the region. But the Bible predicted and prophesied that this would happen. So what are Christians supposed to do? Christians are supposed to pray for both sides and pray that the Prince of Peace would come, that Emmanuel, God, would be with us. Pray that the hostages find the peace of God. Pray that the Palestinians find peace and protection against the bombings that come from Israel, and pray that the Jewish people from around the world would be protected as well, because the Israelites are really God's people first and foremost, and we have to remember that.
Wow, that is wild. So I know you talked about it a little bit, but can you kind of speak to the history of this, like the origin and where it kind of came from?
Yeah. Again, I'm not a professional historian, but from the Bible standpoint, in Genesis chapter 16, remember you had Abraham and Sarah, and God had promised that Abraham would have a son, but Sarah said, "Hey, why don't you sleep with Hagar, my maidservant?" Well, Hagar was Arab, right? And so now you have this Jewish man who's supposed to be the father of all the Jews sleeping with Hagar. Right? So Hagar gives birth to a child. Well, Sarah's so upset about it, she kicks her out. And so now Hagar, a single mom who's out in the desert, God meets her there. And she names him El Roi, the God who sees. God meets her there. She names that child Ishmael, which means hears. So think about that. Ishmael hears, God sees. Right? But then you have Abraham and Sarah, who then have another child, and that child now is Isaac. And so through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and going on to Jesus, that is the blessed line of God's people. But you have Ishmael out here. God didn't kill Ishmael. God didn't judge Hagar, but they are the father of the Arabs. And so there will always be enmity between the Jewish child, Isaac, and the Arab child, Ishmael. But God sees both of them. God hears both of them, but it's been predicted that there will always be pain and enmity between the two of them until the Prince of Peace comes. And that's what we're praying, that the Prince of Peace would come, and that Arabs would come to know the Lord, that Jews would come to know the Lord. Because again, you got a lot of Jewish people can't stand the name of Jesus and don't believe in God.
Right.
And if they believe in God, they don't believe in Jesus being the Messiah. So they're waiting for a Messiah to come when he's already come. The thing that is similar between me and a Jewish man is that the Jewish man is waiting for the first coming of the Messiah. As a Christian man, I'm waiting for the second coming of the Messiah.
Right, right.
And so then you have the Muslims, and they believe that Jesus was a prophet, and many of them have more respect for the prophet Jesus than Jewish people do.
Right.
Some are even offended by it. Not all of them, but some are offended by it. So you have people who are Islamic, who that means peace, and so, but yet there are terrorist groups who are taking the Islamic book, right, and literally using that to create war. And so all of this war is what the scriptures tell us in Matthew, I believe it's 24:25, when it says that there are going to be wars and rumors of wars, and there are going to be signs of the end of the times. And this is part of the signs of the end of the times, where it says that ethnic group will fight against ethnic group. So we have to be bridge builders. We have to be gracists, and we have to pray for peace in Israel, while at the same time not taking political sides, but taking spiritual sides. And spiritual sides means life. We're praying for life. So does that mean Israel ought to have a ceasefire? Or does that mean there should be a pause, at least, for more talks? I believe a pause is important right now. I also believe rooting out Hamas is important right now. And so they have to deal with this complicated situation. And so maybe a pause to have some more talks, but a ceasefire where you're like, we're never going to fight again, and we're just going to let Hamas continue to metastasize so they can come back and kill innocent Jewish people. That's not wise either. The last thing I'd say is this. There's a lot of anti-Semitism throughout the world right now. In our country, on our college campuses, in other countries like in France, where they're putting a Jewish star on places where Jewish people are, which takes us all the way back to the Holocaust, and that's what the Nazis did. You had to identify where the Jews were. You put a star on that building, a star in that neighborhood, so they could come in and they could exterminate the Jews. And so for those who are anti-Semitic, they are racist and not gracist. God has called us to be gracist, so we cannot stand for any kind of racism. whether it's whites against blacks or whether it's blacks against whites or whatever it may be, we can't, in the name of some kind of supremacy, think that we can be racist against Jewish people. So stop it. It's not godly.